You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. At Fidelity, you'll always get a great value for your options trades. And with powerful investing tools that provide clear next steps, plus independent research and a wide range of investment types, we can help you make better trading decisions. Learn more about options trading with Fidelity at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and sometimes beyond and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And next up is one of those beyond conversations. This is the fun one. It's time for our annual check-in with Mead Welles and the team over there at ALTSO, a.k.a. A Leg to Stand On. Mead is the co-founder, chairman, and treasurer of that organization. Mead, welcome back to the Options Insider Radio program.
Thank you, Mark. It's nice to be back. I appreciate your support.
Well, Mead, we were just joking before the show. It doesn't seem like it's been a year since the last time you and I talked, but it clearly has because it's that time of year again. It's time for Rocktoberfest to roll on into Chicago. But before we get into the specifics, let's just catch our listeners up. I'm sure a lot of people have tuned in since our last conversation. Maybe they're not that familiar with ALTSO and what it is you guys do. So let's start there. What is ALTSO, Mead? What do you guys do?
Well, ALTSO is an acronym for A Leg to Stand On, which is a nonprofit, a 401c3, based in New York City. And we help children in developing countries that have limb disabilities. So these are children that have either lost their arms or legs in an accident or due to a disease, or they were born without arms or limbs. And we provide free corrective surgery and artificial limbs from the age of birth until the age of 18.
Well, it's a great service you guys provide. You guys are really out there, boots on the ground, really out there in the developing world, helping a lot of kids. So we're very happy to feature you guys here on the network. And of course, the focus of a lot of what you guys do is on the developing world, but a lot of the funding and a lot of the donations come via the many events that you guys put on, including one that's coming up very soon here in Chicago, Rocktoberfest. So Mead, let's start there. walk us through what is Rocktoberfest? I think the name probably conveys a certain degree of imagery to our audience, but fill us in. What is Rocktoberfest?
So Rocktoberfest is our signature event for a leg to stand on. And we've been doing this almost for 15 to 17 years, depending on location. We have it in New York, which was the primary spot, and we branched out to Chicago several years ago. Excuse me. And it's just been a great success. We've got bands made up of finance professionals, people in the hedge fund world and the commodity trading world and the futures world that play sets of rock music to an audience of their peers. And it's a fun opportunity to come out and let your hair down if you have any hair left and see some professional big hitters out on stage performing some great songs. And it all benefits a leg to stand on.
Big hitters performing some big hits. I like that. I was pleased to attend the last few events you've done here in Chicago. They've been fantastic events. I was very pleased to see you guys had a great turnout. How was last year's Rocktoberfest from your perspective? How did things turn out there, Mead?
Turned out well. We actually took additional space last year. The event is at the City Winery. And this year it's on October 10th, 10-10 wins, as we like to say. But last year we opened it up from the main stage room. We moved also into a second bar with an acoustic room. So this was a much bigger event than previous events, and it was a great success. I think people like to have the option of seeing the hard rock music on stage amplified and with all the energy and excitement that you'd expect. And then you've got this sidebar, which has an acoustic set playing. It's a little bit more low key. It's great for networking, meeting people, passing cards out, collecting cards, and getting drinks and food. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, if you've never been to City Winery here in Chicago, listeners, it's a pretty large venue. And you guys were able to expand, like you said, and fill not just one stage, but two last year. So it was a very impressive event. You had the acoustic stage going. It was very well attended. You had the main stage going. A lot of great things going on over there at the ALTSO. But before we even get to October in Chicago here, you have another event coming up very soon. I know a lot of our audience is back east as well. You have an event coming up in about a week on the 18th, I believe, Mead. So why don't you fill us in on that one as well?
Yep, that's a pre-event jam at the Bitter End down in the Village in New York City. And so where a number of the bands that are performing on the main stage are going to be doing smaller sets in a very intimate setting. If you haven't been to the Bitter End, it's a classic place that's hosted all the major names going back way to the 60s and 70s. So it's a really special place to see kind of the warm-up, if you will, for the major event.
You know, you mentioned that kind of expanding schedule because you guys, since I first started talking to you, it was pretty much mostly geared around the Rocktoberfest, which is a great event. But as you kind of just alluded to, you now really have broadened that schedule quite a bit. You have these pre-jam events, then you have the Rocktoberfest events themselves, and then you even have, I noticed recently, Mead, these Sweat for ALTSO events. So what's going on there?
Yeah, these are just fun opportunities to bring people together where they can meet and either perform on stage as a musician, or they can get involved in a more active way by participating in one of these exercise events. We've had them at Swerve, which is like a Soul Cycle. We've had them at different venues. There's one actually tonight at Court 16 in New York City. But they're fun opportunities to get out, get a little workout, or get some exercise, appreciate the physical assets that you have, which you don't always appreciate, you know, having your mobility, your arms, your legs, and all the wonderful things that you can do with those. So we encourage people to go onto our website and look for activities and events and see if there are any nearby that would fit for you and get involved. It's a way to support the cause, meet people, and get in good shape.
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you can't make it out to these Rocktoberfest events, you don't live in New York or London or Chicago or in those surrounding areas, you still can participate. There are some of these Sweat for ALTSO events, and indeed you can just go to altso.org, ALTSO.org, and find out about the mission, what it is they are doing over there, and how you guys can be a part of it. Let's talk about that mission a little bit, Mead, because last time you were on, you were explaining some of the different journeys you guys have taken to the developing world in terms of what you guys are really doing to implement, as you mentioned earlier, this newfound mobility for these kids across the developing world. Have you been on any interesting journey since the last time you and I chatted here on the network?
Well, we are on missions all throughout the year. We've got project partners in around 10, 11 different countries, sort of spanning from Latin America to Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. The way we operate, Mark, is that we identify local organizations that are providing services. They can be providing the prosthetic engineering and the fitting of the artificial limbs. They could be doing the surgery. They could be doing anything that's related to those things. And we do a complete due diligence on them to make sure that they're credible and reliable and sustainable organization, just like we would if we're providing a loan to a company. And once they've cleared our due diligence, we'll form a project partnership, and they will send us a list of the children that they have registered for treatment. We'll look at it and we'll approve that kind of proposal, and we will fund in installments the money to pay for the limb parts or the procedures or the braces or whatever's necessary. And we do this in several different countries, and we obviously have to check and make sure that things are going according to plan. So we go over and conduct audits on all of our project partners. But this has proven to be a very efficient platform. We initially started off by having doctors fly from the United States over to India, as an example, and we'd hold an examination camp, and we'd see a lot of children, and we'd take notes on what needs to be done. And then the latter half of the week, we would spend providing the procedure, doing the surgical treatments to prepare the stump to receive the boot, for the prosthetic. And then we'd fly home. But, in many cases, there needs to be follow-up. And so we found it was a much better approach to try to train the locals or work with the locals where they're, permanently, and they can be our eyes and ears and arms and legs on the ground, so to speak. So it's working out very well. We don't, we've been moving away from financial contributions, and in turn, we prefer to send actual componentry. So we've actually developed our own internal limb kit. It's called the Joshi, which again you can see on our website at www.altso.org. But this is a sort of a very modern, cutting-edge prosthetic limb, which we've been able to negotiate very competitive pricing on because we're a nonprofit, and therefore we can, whenever there's a need, we will ship the Joshi limb, and we know that way that the resources that we're providing are going for and being used for the purpose solely, and not for any other purpose, because we can't afford to have any leakage in our process, and so it's very tightly run.
Well, that makes a great deal of sense. You're right, because if you go over there for some sporadic trips throughout the year, you can only help kids when you're there in that very small window, whereas if you're staffing up and training up and setting up these partners in the local area who know the area better, who are familiar with the needs of the area, they can provide that care year-round. Then you guys can provide some of the back-end, logistical and, as you mentioned, the device support as well as some financial support as well. How is 2019 looking in terms of the number of kids you've engaged with compared to recent years? Are you on track for a record year? How are things going on that front?
Yeah, things have been going very well, thank you. We've actually opened up a few new project partnerships since we've got some new countries now online, and we're providing everything from wheelchairs to the prosthetics to the surgery. And every year we tend to grow a little bit more and a little bit more. So we're just very grateful for the support that we get from our attendees at these events and the contributors that contribute both time and capital. So without that fuel, this bus wouldn't make it anywhere. So we're very grateful to all those that support us. Our sponsors are just incredible. Like in Chicago for the event on October 10th, we've got groups like ADM Investor Services and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Board, the CBOE, and Orange, which is a technology software company that's been wonderful. So we're just, without that support, we wouldn't be able to get anywhere. And it's, through those generous acts, we're actually able to change the world. And I hate to use the saying, it's a little bit trite, but one step at a time.
It certainly is in keeping with the mission there, Mead. Speaking of that mission, how many countries are you guys active in right now around the world?
We're active in about 12 countries right now around the world.
That's a pretty broad reach for, again, it's a pretty streamlined charity you guys run there. It's a very, streamlined staff, like you mentioned, and so to be able to reach that many different countries, it's very impressive. It's interesting to me because you and I have been talking for a couple of years now. I've been to your events. I've talked to your staff and your team, and I've seen what you guys are working on. And it's, for me, when I first encountered ALTSO and what you guys were doing, I had the perception that it was mostly children who were injured by landmines and other traumatic events like that, that's who the lion's share of who you were helping. But perusing some of your documentation recently, it seems like that's actually a very small percentage. And actually, most of the kids are actually congenital amputees or have other congenital birth defects. Is that pretty much the lion's share of the kids you're engaging with now?
You're absolutely right, Mark. The vast majority of the children that we're helping have been either were born with the birth defect or they had an injury, a traumatic injury. The ambulatory services in a lot of these countries are poor. I mean, they don't have the ambulances set up the way we do here in the United States or in Europe or the developed world. So when a child falls, even if they're playing in a tree in the backyard, if they fall, they break an arm, they don't get to the hospital for, in some cases, up to a week. And if it's a compound fracture, what will happen is gangrene will set in. And by the time they get to the hospital, they will have no other course or option other than to amputate. So it's really tragic. The other thing that happens is that you've got very kind of arcane traffic behaviors. You'll go to some of these countries and you'll see the streets where the cars and buses are overloaded with people. You've got 4 people on a moped and somebody's holding a basket on their head. And so you'll see accidents that happen all the time. And it's these accidents that lead to the amputations. So hopefully over time, things will get solved on their own. But there are issues that will always be around that we're going to need to address. And that's why, we're really grateful to be able to do what we do.
And you mentioned the Joshi earlier. That's your signature prosthetic device that you guys have really helped to develop over there at ALTSO. It was a fairly new device the last time you and I chatted. Any new updates you can give our audience, maybe in terms of the device itself or maybe in terms of the process and bringing down the cost? What's new with the Joshi? Maybe is there a Joshi 2.0 or beyond now?
Well, we're constantly evaluating ways to improve and reduce costs and increase the utility and the sustainability of the componentry. AJ Worko is our program director, has just been phenomenal about that. He's worked with our one of the major prosthetic engineers that we've worked with since the very beginning during Joshi, and that's in fact the namesake that we named the limb after. But what we've been doing, the most recent developments, is just being able to package and then ship these in bulk in a way that's very cost effective and easy to manage and monitor. So that's, for us as a small organization, we only have effectively 4 employees. And so we've got to be very, very careful about how we manage our time and resources. And every dollar that's donated to us, we want to make sure it's being used for the purpose and not wasted on frivolous things. So the technology and the ability to package these and ship them to various destinations and deal with customs and all the other concerns that you have when you're involved in an export-import business are things that we are streamlining and improving upon.
All right, so let's recap then. Of course, ALTSO, a leg to stand on. It's a great charity, a lot of great events. You guys can participate if you're in or around Chicago, New York, London. London's already happened. That was on June 19th, but New York's coming up in about a week. They got the 18th is the pre-jam session in New York. Then coming up on the 10th here in Chicago will be another Rocktoberfest. I've been to it. It's a great event. I encourage you, if you're in or around the area, to check it out. And if you're not in or around these areas, there are many great things you can do. Mead, if they're not in those areas, I know a lot of our audience isn't, but they still want to be a part of the mission to help you guys go out there and provide mobility to these kids in the developing world. What can people do out there?
Well, Mark, there's a lot that people can do. I think I've got 4 little children, and they don't realize how lucky they are to have the things they have. Just being, born in America with all the access and the resources and the support, the school system, the medical system, and so forth. There is nothing more powerful than engaging them in an activity to raise funds and awareness for a leg to stand on. It's a wonderful way to teach your children how to be grateful and that they are very blessed to have what they have. So we encourage support in any way that people feel fit. It doesn't have to be monetary. It's wonderful if it is, but we welcome just sharing the news, having a cocktail party or a wine tasting or a book club, and have a discussion about Led to Stand On, what we do and the need and how it impacts these children. It's not always just the physical mobility, which is amazing to be able to provide that for them. Often the biggest benefit for these children is being able to relieve them of the emotional trauma of being an outcast, of being someone not like all the other children. And we underestimate the importance of that. So I can't stress it enough to people out there that the self-esteem and the impression of themselves and the feeling of being a second-class citizen is so profound with these children. Little girls that are beautiful but lost their arms in an accident. They say, well, who's going to love me this way? Who's ever going to want to marry me? How will I ever have a family and have a life? These are enormous questions for a little child to have to think about. And so if we can eliminate a lot of that by giving them the artificial limbs, they have a much greater, ability to be functional and they can participate. But often they love the fact that now they become anonymous, whereas prior to that, they were a spectacle. Everybody would look at them because they saw they had no arms. So these are the real benefits, and you can help in any number of ways. Have a walkathon or a runathon or a bake sale or whatever it is, a cocktail party, and say we're going to try to do something for my birthday, raise money for Led to Stand On. We welcome any ideas and any participation. We really appreciate that.
Well said, sir. Just to recap again here, the events coming up, 18th in New York. If you're there, October 10th in Chicago. Again, I encourage you to come out. If you can't, ALTSO.org, ALTSO, a leg to stand on.org is the place to go. You can also give them a follow, see what's new with them at a leg to stand on Twitter as well for updates. And then you just heard many ways you can participate, monetary and many other ways as well. A leg to stand on, ALTSO.org is the place to go. I hope to see you at these events coming up. And Mead, I'll look forward to catching up with you soon here in Chicago.
Mark, thank you. If I could just make one last comment. The event next week in New York is a pre-jam at the bitter end. The actual Hedge Fund Rocktoberfest in Chicago is on 10/10, October 10th, at the City Winery at 6 p.m., and then in New York, it's October 24th. That's the main New York event. And that's at the Hard Rock Cafe in the heart of Times Square. So, again, you can find all that information, as Mark said, on the website at www.altso.org, which is the acronym for a leg to stand on. Mark, thank you very much, and wish you all the best at Options Insider. And look forward to seeing you.
Thanks for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you in Chicago, and look forward to seeing all of you at these events and visiting altso.org.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. At Fidelity, you'll always get a great value for your options trades. And with powerful investing tools that provide clear next steps, plus independent research and a wide range of investment types, we can help you make better trading decisions. Learn more about options trading with Fidelity at fidelity.com/ Options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.